Okay, so moving on to our last speaker for the event, we have Praveen Selvam with us. Praveen is working with ThoughtWorks as of now as a developer. In case he would not have been so seriously inclined towards software development, he surely would have been selling the pictures he's been clicking for a long time. Let me tell you, he has a very good gallery of pictures. He loves music and he likes to spend quality time playing games. Okay, he'll be talking about Mr. Oversmart Jr.
So, I'm going to be talking about this guy who is apparently my friend in college, and I'm going to be telling about a couple of instances that happened in Israel. So, this guy came to me when we were doing college, and he told me that he wanted to build a software, something like a library management system, something very basic. So, I walked him through a couple of Microsoft products that would get him in a matter of about a week, and he was over. And then he came back to me and said, dude, I have a problem. I said, what? He said, I have a login box, tiny money box in front of the application, and I wanted to become smart. I said, like, what's smart? He said, if I don't enter a username or password, the application must tell me that I have not entered something like that instead of going and submitting. I said, you can do this with something called a JavaScript, and I taught him how to do it. So he went home, he did a bit of reading, he completed that, and he came back to me saying, I did it, but I want this to become more smart. I said, like what? He said, you know these keys on the keyboard that are like the asterisk, the semicolon, and all these things? They really don't become part of a username or a password. So why not give it to the user? Let's disable it. I said, fine, valid enough. We can do that. So I don't know how to do that. So after he accomplished that, he had that sense of that stunning feeling in him that he had actually done it. So he went back, he did more and more coding and more time into it. He had not slept that previous day. He came back to me next day with his red eyes and he said, dude, get up, check what I've done. He had something like this. I tried typing the password, jumped, and the application stopped responding. I said, hey, the app is not responding. He said, check again. I typed passwords and it was not responding. He came back and said, oh no, that's pro security. You actually cannot press anything other than the password sequence, which means if your password is table, you cannot type anything other than T-A-B-L-E. So you're taking it to that extent. So let me tell you a little bit about his love life. So this guy had this small cell phone. He used to text this girl, and then eventually they had a relationship, and he told me it was the amazing love story ever, so it was that serious. So all of a sudden he lost his mobile phone with a SIM card, and worse, he did not know her number, neither of them. So he was in big trouble. It took him about 2 to 3 days to actually get a replacement SIM card, put it in the cell phone, but he had to wait for her call because he did not know her number. And now he knew that the toughest question was going to come to him. So just as expected, the call came in and she was like, hey, don't you know my number? And this guy was all prepared for this. So he said, honey, listen, I can explain. I almost remembered your number. What? I mean, I just couldn't recollect the last 2 numbers, so I had to do so many combinations that it ended up in so many people's cell phone and they harassed me. And you know how I felt? And this guy was explaining and that girl fell for this. She was like, oh sweetheart, it's okay, it happens and all of that. I just couldn't believe my eyes, this girl just believed it. So they are like, it's been 2 days since we saw each other, 3 days since we saw each other, and they're sitting in this coffee shop talking to each other very happily, and I just couldn't digest it. So this guy has a hot chocolate and that girl some cold coffee, and they're discussing a lot of things like this, and they don't even remember everything that has happened. And all of a sudden this girl is like, I need to ask you something, and you have to be honest with me, okay? And this guy's like, whatever for you, sweetheart. This girl gets up and says, you better tell me the first 8 digits of my mobile number, or I'm walking out right now. That was the last time they ever saw each other, and ever since that he's been telling me this. It's good to have relatively dumber partners. It may be hard to find, he insists on that, but it's always good to try. So I'm just trying to tell you how overdoing things can end up like this. So before I wrap up, I'll just tell you another short story about his cell phone. He had this cell phone right from the ages when it was not available to everybody. So he wanted to put this to good use, and he was actually dining in the college canteen. So he saw this small hair strand, the food, and he clicked a picture of that. He ran to the principal, and then he showed him this thing. Look at what you guys are serving us. And that guy just replied saying, I'm very happy to see that you've brought this to my notice, but I'd like to remind you that camera phones are still banned in the college. So he actually ended up paying $5,000 and he got away with that apology letter just because he had to give it to the attendant. So before I wrap this up, jokes apart, this guy is actually very successful, and he's a server programmer, and he works for one of the leading server manufacturers in Singapore. Thank you very much.